Welcome everyone, this is a Legacy School Science lesson for Biology Chapter 5 on human influences on the environment. This is part 1 of 2 parts. For this part, you will need your Science Checkpoint Book 3, pages 65 to 73. Humans in the environment. The first people used natural materials such as stone, wood, animal skins, bones, antlers, and shells. They shaped materials using flint knives and axes. When they discovered fire, they also discovered the changes that heat could make. First, they saw how it changed food, and later it was believed that they saw how metal was produced from hot rocks around a campfire. In time, they learned how to extract metals from rocks by smelting and to use the metal to make a wide range of products. This is figure 5.1. It shows the Bronze Age village seen in northern Europe around 4,000 years ago. In the foreground, a furnace is being used to smelt metals, while elsewhere metal tools and objects are in use. The human population was only small when metal smelting was discovered, and the smoke and smell from this process caused little pollution. As the human population grew, the demand for metal and other products such as pottery and glass increased. All the processing in the manufacture of these products had to be done by hand. Although there would be some pollution around the places where people gathered to make these products, the world environment was not threatened. About 200 years ago, it was discovered how machines could be used in manufacturing processes, and the Industrial Revolution began. Machines could be used to produce more products than would be produced by people working on their own. This meant that large amounts of fuel were needed to work the machines and air pollution increased, as we can see in figure 5.2. Larger amounts of raw material were needed and more habitats were destroyed in order to obtain them. More waste products were produced, increasing water and land pollution as the industrial manufacturing processes. At first, and for many years, it was believed that air could carry away the fumes and make them harmless, and that chemicals could be flushed into rivers and the sea where they would be diluted and become harmless also. The ways various chemical wastes could affect people were unknown. An awareness of the danger of pollution increased in the latter half of the 20th century, and in many countries today, steps are being taken to control it and develop more efficient ways of manufacturing materials. The Earth's changing atmosphere. Studies from astronomy and geology have shown that the solar system formed from a huge cloud of gas and dust in space. The Earth is one of the planets formed from this cloud. The surface of the Earth was punctured when erupting volcanoes for a billion years after it formed. The gases escaping from inside the Earth through the volcanoes formed an atmosphere composed of water vapor, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen. 3 billion years ago, the first planets developed. They produced oxygen as a waste product of photosynthesis. As the plant began to flourish in the seas, in the fresh water, and in the land, the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere increased. It reacted with ammonia to produce nitrogen. Bacteria developed that survived by using energy from the breakdown of nitrates in the soil. In this process, more nitrogen was produced. In time, nitrogen and oxygen became the two major gases of the atmosphere. Between 15 and 30 kilometers above the Earth, the ultraviolet rays of the sun reacted with oxygen to produce ozone. An ozone molecule is formed from three oxygen atoms. It prevents ultraviolet radiation, which is harmful to life, reaching the Earth's surface. If the ozone layer had not developed, life might not have evolved to cover such large areas of the planet's surface as it does today. Owing to the activities of humans, the atmosphere today contains increasing amounts of carbon dioxide, large amounts of sulfur dioxide, and chlorofluorocarbons, which have destroyed large portions of the ozone layer. Air pollution. Every day we burn large amounts of fuels such as coal and oil in power stations to produce electricity. This provides us with light, warmth, and power. The power is used in all kinds of industries for the manufacture of wide range of things, from clothes to cars. In homes, electricity runs washing machines, refrigerators, and microwave oven. It provides power for televisions, radios, and computers. When coal and oil are burned, however, they produce carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, and soot particles that make smoke. When polluting substances are given out into the air in this way, they often called emission. Carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is described as a greenhouse gas because the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere acts like the glass in a greenhouse. It allows heat energy from the sun to pass through it to the earth, but prevents much of the heat energy radiating from the earth's surface from passing out into space. The heat energy remains in the atmosphere and warms it up. The warmth of the Earth has allowed millions of different life forms to develop, and it keeps the planet habitable. This is figure 5.6. It shows some of the heat that the Earth receives from the sun is trapped in the atmosphere. In the past, the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has remained low, but the level is now beginning to rise. The extra carbon dioxide will probably trap more heat energy in the atmosphere. A rise in the temperature of the atmosphere will cause an expansion of the water in the ocean. It will also cause the melting of the ice cap at the north and south poles, and this water will then flow into the expanding ocean waters. Both of these events will lead to a rising of the level of the sea level and a change in the climate for almost all parts of the earth. The rise in the temperature is known as global warming. Acid rain. Sulfur dioxide is produced by combustion of sulfur in a fuel when the fuel is burnt. Sulfur dioxide reacts with water vapor and oxygen in the air to form sulfuric acid. This may fall to the ground as acid rain or snow. Oxides of nitrogen are converted to nitric acid in the atmosphere, and this also falls to the ground as acid rain or snow. When acid rain reaches the ground, it drains into the soil, dissolves some of the minerals there, and carries them away. This process is called leaching. Some of the material are needed for the healthy growth of plants. Without the minerals, the plants become stunted and may die. The acid rain drains into rivers and lakes and lowers the pH of the water. Many forms of water life are sensitive to the pH of the water and cannot survive if it's too acidic. If the pH changes, they die, and the animals that feed on them, such as fish, may also die. Acid rain leaches aluminum or ions out of the soil. If they reach a high concentration in the water, the gills of fish are affected. It causes the fish to suffocate. Soot and smog. The soot particles in the air form smoke, settle on building and plant life. They make buildings dirty and form black coating on their outer surfaces. When soot covers leaves, it cuts down the amount of light reaching the leaf cell and slows down photosynthesis. As well as being used in industry, coal used to be the main fuel for heating homes in the United Kingdom until 1950s. In foggy weathers, the smoke of the coal combined with water droplets in the fog to form smog. The water droplets absorbed the soot particles and chemicals in the smoke and made a very dense cloud at ground level, through which it was difficult to see. When people inhaled air containing smog, the lining of their respiratory system became damaged. People with respiratory disease were particularly vulnerable to smog, and in the winter of 1952, 5,000 people died in London. This tragedy led to the passing of law to help reduce pollution. In Los Angeles, weather conditions in May to October led to the exhaust gases from vehicles and smoke from industrial plants collecting above the city in a brown haze. Sunlight shining through this smoke causes photochemical reactions to occur in it. This produced a range of chemicals, including peroxyethyl nitrate, PAN, and ozone. Both of these chemicals are harmful to plants, and ozone can produce asthma attacks in people in the city. The Gaia hypothesis. The Gaia hypothesis was developed to explain how life survives on Earth. It is the idea of James Lovelock, who was born in England in 1919. He studied chemicals, he studied chemistry at university, then began researching in medical science. He is also He is also a keen inventor, and in the 1950s, he devised scientific instruments that could detect gases occurring in very small amounts in the air. Some of these gases, such as CFCs, which destroy ozone, have been shown to seriously affect the environment. From this work, he was invited to take part in planning the Viking missions to Mars. James Lovelock was particularly interested in the atmosphere of Mars, but found that the main plan was to search for life on the planet by examining the soil. He continued with his thoughts about planet atmosphere and life and examined data about the atmosphere of Mars, Venus, and Earth. He found that the atmosphere of Mars and Venus both had large amounts of carbon dioxide and tiny amounts of nitrogen and oxygen. According to calculations, these amounts matching those that would be found if chemical reactions between elements and compounds in the rocks and atmosphere were the only processes that had taken place. When he examined the Earth's atmosphere, he found it to have a very small amount of carbon dioxide, a huge amount of nitrogen, and about one-fifth of it was oxygen. He concluded that this difference was due to the presence and activities of living things on our planet. When Lovelock studied data about the Earth's atmosphere in the past, before there was evidence of living things, he found that it used to be more similar to that of the other planets. Then, as living things developed and increased in number on the Earth, the atmosphere changed to containing a large amount of oxygen. Data about the atmosphere during the time that living things have been present shows that its composition has remained fairly constant. The amount of the gases have stayed about the same. This led Lovelock to propose that living things in some way regulate the composition of the atmosphere and keep it suitable for living processes. He suggested that the Earth and all its living things could be thought of as one gigantic organism, which somehow tries to keep itself alive in space, an idea that became known as the Gaia hypothesis. Gaia was an ancient Greek word for Earth. This conclusion was not accepted by many scientists, and most thought that it was more like science fiction than science fact. Lovelock responded to the criticism of his hypothesis in 1983 by devising a computer simulation called Daisy World, with Andrew Watson, a scientist who also studies the atmosphere. The simulation features a sun and an Earth-type planet, which has seeds of daisies with black petals and seeds of daisies with white petals on its surface. The black daisies have an advantage in cooler condition because their dark color means they can absorb heat better. The white daisies do better in hotter condition because they reflect more radiation and therefore do not dehydrate easy. At the beginning, the sun shines and heats up the earth. When a certain temperature is reached, black daisy seeds germinate and grow. The black surface formed by the daisies causes the planet to absorb more heat and makes the temperature rises further. This causes the germination of white daisy seeds, which outcompete the black daisies in high temperature conditions. As the white daisies spread across the planet, the whiteness reflects heat and the planet cools. So the black daisies start to do better again. Eventually, a normal temperature is reached at which both plants can survive. So this is his experiment. He shines light. So when it's only black daisies, it gets more hot. So the white daisies start to germinate more. And then when the white daisy starts to germinate more, it becomes cooler. So then the black daisies germinate more, and so on and so forth until a temperature in the middle is reached where the planet has both black and white daisies. Both Lovelock and Watson stated that this simple model could not be directly compared to conditions on Earth, but it did show how activities on the planet could regulate the condition. Since then, the model has been made more complicated with the addition of animal species such as rabbits and foxes, and this has shown that more species make the regulation of the planet's temperature more efficient. There is still much scientific debate about the Gaia hypothesis, but it has led to the establishment of Earth science, in which the atmosphere, the ocean, the rocky parts of the land, and the biosphere are studied to find out how each may affect the other. The scientists who take part in these investigations are biologists, chemists, and physicists, and through their work, the effect of the activities of human on the environment are being investigated. This is the end of this part. I'll see you again soon.